Hi, and thank you for tuning in. Before we get started here, what you're looking at is the finished piece from a drawing that I started 2 videos ago in my first ever real-time talking and drawing video. And that video, it was kind of a first for my channel. I've posted my art before, but usually the drawings are sped up to like 4, 5, 6, like they're sped up really fast. Because I didn't think anybody would have the patience or the attention span to watch me draw, because I'm a slow-ass drawer, guys. Like, I'm not quick with the pen. But I was pleasantly surprised to see some very positive comments under that one. So, a heartfelt thank you to people for leaving positive comments and giving a thumbs up. This video is going to be very similar. I've got my blank page. I've got my Uniball pen, Vision Uniball. Somebody asked in my last video what kind of pen I use. The reason I like these ones is that sometimes after a drawing is finished, I like to color it in with watercolor paint. Somebody else asked what kind of paper I use. So it's also Vision brand. Isn't that funny? This is not endorsed. I paid full price for these things. But yeah, watercolor paper. So by doing it on watercolor paper and with a Vision Uniball pen, it can be painted into afterwards. Because the Uniball ink, I've tested a lot of different drawing inks. This one seems to be the most waterproof once it's dry. I mean, it even says waterproof, fade-proof. Some of the drawings I did in high school, very sadly, the ink is faded, so it started out as black and now it looks kind of like pissy, for lack of a better word. It's gone kind of yellow. Whereas anything I've drawn with a Uniball has stayed light fast. It's kept its original black color. Anyhow, with that out of the way, I'm going to read a little chat that took place beneath my last video, a comment from Leslie Wegener. I'll give you something prettier to look at while I do this. So Leslie put in quotation marks a quote from my video, "Art has to be disturbing. I so agree with you. I took my son to the local art museum, but even he told me he didn't want to go back. It was clearly pushing so many disturbing themes, including porn, in a family museum. If it's art, that's acceptable? No." So that was her comment. I replied, "I know, right? I could do a whole video just about that." And Stratagon replied, "You could? No, you should do." So Stratagon, and Leslie Wegener, and Leslie's son, this one's for you. Oh yeah, okay, Stratagon, there's even one more comment since I last saw that. He wrote, "Good to hear. They would like to hear talking. Oh, I really would like to hear you talking about art. I'm an artist myself. Not painting, but words anyway." So that's cool. Good luck with your word art. That's a silly thing to say, not good luck. Maybe share some of your word art. I'd be curious to hear it. Anyhow, before I get into that comment and that question, I'm going to start my drawing. People sometimes ask, how do you start an abstract drawing? I just put the pen down and start moving it. It's never premeditated. It's always random. It's always abstract. And then once literally anything is on the page, any shape, any mark, I'll just go into it and add to it. And I mean, that might be oversimplifying what I do, but I've been drawing like this literally since I was in a high chair as a baby. With practice, it gets easier to just put a mark down on a white paper. Anyhow, so Leslie's comment, it was referring to something that I brought up in my last video. A story from the time I was in art school. I actually attended the Emily Carr University of Art and Design in Vancouver, and it was like a dream come true for me to get into Emily Carr, because when I finished grade 12, my art teacher, Mrs. Newkirk, she was a great teacher. I loved her class. She sat down with me, and at that time, I wasn't quite sure what direction my life was going to take yet, but she really encouraged me to go to art school in a big city. I'm from Lethbridge, Alberta, the University of Lethbridge also has a really good art program. I've heard good things about it from people. But she said, if you go to the University of Lethbridge, you might not be experiencing the fullness of the art culture. Like, basically, there's a big world out there, go explore it, is what she was telling me. And when I asked her which is the best art school in Canada, she said Emily Carr. And so that's why I really wanted to go there. Anyhow, this incident took place in my second year of art school at Emily Carr. I made a painting that I was really, really happy with for an abstract painting class. I kid you not, there was a whole class, a studio class, which means you do the work in the class. So there was a studio class for abstract painting, and I made this piece that I was so happy with using cool colors. Personally, I find like purples and blues and turquoises to be the most beautiful colors. Everybody's got their favorite color. My favorite color is like a combination of colors, peacock colors. The color of the water and the sky and grass, like cool natural colors. So for those of you who haven't been to art school, one of the biggest aspects of art school is critiques. And this is like, it's hard to put into words how jarring it can be for shy kids like me. I was super shy at that time. Critiques are when you take the finished work that you've made and you put it up on the wall in front of all your classmates, and one by one, they rip it apart verbally. That's putting it harshly, I guess. Sometimes people say good things about it, sometimes they say bad things about it. The general rule of thumb at Emily Carr was that if you say something bad about the piece, you should also give the reason why you're saying it. So you can't just say that sucks, I hate it. Like, you have to say what you don't like about it. We weren't allowed to use the words interesting or nice because our teachers said, and rightfully so, they said, like, those are just cop-outs. Like, if you say something looks interesting, that just means you don't have the vocabulary to articulate what's interesting about it. So tell us why it's interesting. So anyhow, we were in a class critique, and my teacher, Elizabeth McIntosh, who herself was a fairly well-known abstract painter at that time, maybe she still is, I don't know, but she said that in order for my painting to be serious art, like actual worthy of her abstract painting class kind of art, there should be a disturbing visual element added. She said the colors looked too harmonious together, and that, if I wanted to take it to the next level, I should throw in a splash of a color that fights with the colors that were there. And I took offense to that, to be totally honest, because she said that in order for art to be art, it should have a negative reaction in the viewer. The viewer should see it and feel disturbed. And she wasn't the only teacher who said something like that. There was another teacher of mine who said that art should always be making some kind of a social commentary, and that if there's no politics in what you've made, then there's no point in what you've made. The kinds of art that we were learning about in art history class, I remember our art history teacher, something Cutler, Randy Cutler, I think was her name. And I mean, she said some really interesting things, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed Randy Cutler's class. I'm sure now that was her name. There was one painting she showed us that was this really beautifully done painting of women kind of in a grotto, It kind of, I wish I could remember the exact painting. It looked almost like an Art Nouveau kind of a piece, which art school teachers do not take seriously. They do not like the Art Nouveau movement, and I love it. It's one of my favorite art history periods. But anyhow, she kind of tore this painting apart from the perspective that it was the male gaze, which I get. I'm feminist enough that I get that. But anyhow, in art school, what we were learning is basically that if a piece of art existed to inspire or to look beautiful or to evoke a positive emotion, then basically that piece of art is useless. And the kind of art they were promoting was really sick stuff. Just like Leslie Wegener mentioned, that the art gallery she took her son to had porn. There were pieces that we were shown that were against human trafficking, but to look at the piece, you wouldn't really know that that's what it was trying to communicate, because what you would see was like a girl ball gagged and tied up. And so it confronts the viewer, it disturbs the viewer. And what we were told is that that element of shock and disturbance needs to be there to get the conversation started. Whereas stuff like what I'm drawing now, this would be considered an elaborate doodle and a waste of time by serious artists. This would really be considered a waste of time. And I did doodle like this in class at art school, and it was not well received there, because it's not saying anything, it's not doing anything, it's not expressing anything. But to me, this is my favorite kind of art because it does express something. It expresses the way I feel inside. I don't feel dark and disturbed and ugly and angry and political, where I want to splash a bunch of anger onto a page and confront my viewer with it. I love flowers and nature and harmony and sweet melodies. And why would I draw something that I wouldn't want to look at? Anyhow, they would also talk about wall art. Here's another. I didn't want to do a video ranting about art school, but come on, it was requested. And some of you might also have had these feelings. So if so, let me know in a comment. But one of the other classes I took was a lithography class. And I was really excited about that because with the kind of art that I make, like these kinds of drawings, I always wanted to be able to make prints myself of my own work and make them for sale. And so I did this gigantic drawing. I've got one of the litho prints of it in my apartment. So maybe I'll take a picture of that and post it on social media for you to see. But anyhow, the other students were making stuff. I don't remember really. The other students in that class had some interesting art too. Some of them had interesting, the forbidden word in our discussions in class, in our critiques. But there was one girl in particular I remember, she made this hand-bound book. It was the first time I've ever seen a junk journal. So she took all kinds of different papers and bound them together in a handmade book. I think she also took a bookbinding class. It was really cool. And she had this book of prints that she brought in as inspiration called Art Forms in Nature. If you haven't seen that book, I went out and bought a copy. It was so beautiful when she let me look through it. It's close-up studies of natural sea life, like from, I don't know, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But so she was doing some really cool prints inspired by seashells and jellyfish, underwater creatures. But anyway, the big abstract drawing that I did, that I made a bunch of litho prints of, the teacher said something to me that it was one of the remarks from a teacher that kind of sealed my fate as to the fact that I was going to quit art school and just do my own thing. He said, "You may be able to make a bunch of prints of this and sell it at the upcoming Christmas fair." Emily Carr had something like a Christmas sale where students could pay for a space in the gallery, the school gallery, and put up whatever art or craft they made that they had for sale and sell it and get like a portion of the sale price. It was kind of like an artist market, an art fair. But this teacher, he said you could probably sell a bunch of copies of this for $25 each at the art fair, but that doesn't make it art. And I was just kind of choked, and I was thinking, why am I even here? You know, who defines what art is? Is it really a bad thing if I can sell prints of this, but it's not real art? Like, if my goal is to be a professional artist, meaning to make a living by making art, then isn't the most important thing whether or not it can sell? Like, as crass and commercial as that sounds, does it matter, like, whether pretentious art school trend followers think that this counts or not? Or does it matter if I can pay my rent with it, you know? So that's the kind of rude things they say to students to try to make us conform in art school. There have been other chats beneath my videos about this too. My thoughts on art and the art world. And somebody had commented that they had a similar experience. I'm sorry I don't have the comment ready to read because I closed my laptop. But somebody else had commented that it's so weird that in art school... Oh, it was Serena Toxicat. Serena. Hey, Serena. I remembered as I'm talking. She had commented that it's so weird that the word precious was used as an insult, because that was the other thing Elizabeth McIntosh had said about my work. She said it's too precious. And what Serena was saying was that the word precious, it's actually a good thing. Like, it's not an insult if somebody calls your work precious. Like, doesn't that mean it's highly valuable? And, you know, take it in a good way, if you take it in a good way. But in art school, when they call your work precious, what they mean is it's too controlled in a singular focus about aesthetic. Art school is not so much about aesthetic, or it's not about a beautiful aesthetic. It's about, I think, what they're trying to make it into. And like I said, this could be dated. Maybe the scene has changed since I was there. 15 years is a long time. I'm an old lady now. So maybe it's changed. I hope it's changed. But back then, when an art teacher said your work was too precious, what they meant was kind of like your lines were too tight, or it's only created to look good, but it doesn't have any heart, it doesn't have any soul. But you know, who says that when you try to make something beautiful, it doesn't have heart? Like, to me, that just sounds so ridiculously backwards to me. Something that's just conforming to a modern trend of gore or disgust value, trying to get a jarred reaction from somebody, to me, that is lacking heart and soul. Like, if somebody makes something deliberately disturbing just to get a reaction out of their audience because some art teacher told them that the purpose of art is to confront your viewer and make them feel uncomfortable, That's lacking heart. Like, that's lacking soul. Tune into my TED Talk about this because I think I just found my topic. Making something to make people feel good when they look at it, that's not lacking heart. Making something deliberately assaulting to the senses, that lacks heart. Okay, speaking of assaulting senses, Leslie and others who have kids listening, you might want to turn this off or pause it or mute it or tell your kids to plug their ears. One of the artworks that my Emily Carr teachers really frickin' loved, like they would talk about this as if this person who did it was just a genius. But there was some artist who did a gallery installation where she collected dirty panties from as many women as she could get to contribute to her project. And then she hung those dirty panties from the gallery ceiling so that when people walked into the gallery, all they could smell was dirty underwear. To me, that's just disgusting. Like, I don't even care what point she was trying to make. I don't want any art fanatics preaching at me in the comments saying, no, her point was that blah, 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 blah. Like, there's other ways you can make your point that aren't just raunchy and disgusting. Taxidermy is another thing like that. You know, there was an artist who taxidermied a shark and suspended it in a tank. And this guy is considered another art genius, like modern art genius. But I'm not even sorry. I almost said I'm sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. He should be sorry. Taking the life of an animal to put it on display, that's not art. That's murder. That's cruelty. It would be one thing if the shark had died of natural causes and washed up on a beach, and then he had taxidermied it, maybe in a tank full of plastic to show how human waste is affecting marine life. Then it's telling the viewer something that we do kind of have to hear. I could see that as the message in the art for a reason. But it's like Lady Gaga with her disgusting meat suit, or people who wear fur. Like, come on, F you, people who still buy fur and leather and meat. Okay, I'll save veganism for another video because that's a whole other topic. But yeah, Serena, I totally agree that precious is a good thing. And, if my art school teachers thought my work was too precious, then thank you, because precious things have an actual value. Disturbing things, that might be the trend in art right now. But, 600 years from now, people will still appreciate beauty, but they may or may not appreciate something disgusting, that speaks to the bored out of their minds, screen addicted, low attention span people of our time who will only stop to look at something if it confronts them. I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's like the viewers who need shock value in order to get interested in art, they might not have the attention span to really look at something and give time to something that's just beautiful for the sake of beauty. And I mean, I'm not saying my work is all that beautiful. I'm saying that I strive to make it beautiful. My goal when I make art is to make something that looks beautiful. And if somebody's goal is to make their work look interesting or neat or to tell a story, that's also cool. Like, I don't have anything against people who want to make a political statement with their work. I think that's also valid. But I wouldn't say that that's the only thing that should be considered art, or the only thing that counts as art. I think I said something in reply to Serena, like, it's only an art school where somebody is going to get faulted or insulted for being too technically precise or trying to make their work beautiful. Like, if somebody's going to college on a football scholarship, they're never going to have the football coach tell them, like, dude, you're running a little too fast, you know? They're not going to say to a basketball player, like, you sink too many baskets. Like, you're being a little pedantic here. Like, the point of basketball is the struggle. So can you just jump a little lower? Like, it's only an art school where you'll be told, that looks too beautiful. You should be assaulting the viewer when they look at your work. And then there's people like Leslie who take their son to an art gallery, and it's a family space, and they see porn, and then the poor kid doesn't want to go back. Like, how traumatizing is that for a little boy to go to an art gallery with his mom and see porn? Like, guys, when I was a kid, if my mom took me somewhere and there was porn on the wall, I would have been mortified. Like, that's humiliating. And like Leslie said, just because it's art, and I think she put the word art in quotation marks, that makes it okay. Like, 18 plus is the rating on movies that have something even remotely pornographic. You know, the porn section in a video store. I'm so freaking old, guys. Video stores don't exist anymore, do they? Back when I was young, there was something called a video store, and we would go to this Blockbuster place. So back when there was such a thing as video stores, there was always an adult section that you had to be a certain age to get into, and that's where the porn was kept. Online, I think, they'll ask you how old you are before you enter a porn site. Which I haven't done, by the way. I'm proud to say that I'm not a porn watcher. I think it's I don't want to get into it. But no, I don't watch that. But it's sad that throughout the world you can't expose an innocent child to something pornographic. But at an art museum or an art gallery, you can. And I don't know exactly what Leslie was referring to, but I'm just going to assume she's not referring to something like the Venus de Milo or Venus coming out of a clamshell, because there's a difference between nude and pornographic. I don't think that the human body is something that kids shouldn't see. Like, I don't have any problem with a nude figure. And I don't think Leslie does either. It was pretty clear when she said that the kind of art they were showing was disturbing, like, that it didn't mean just a nude figure. Because that's funny. Like, I don't want to get talking and then have my words misconstrued where it sounds like I think we should be censoring everybody. That's not it either. But if somebody's art is so disturbing that it might make a child feel uncomfortable or maybe give people nightmares, or innocents are killed to produce it, like a meat suit or like a taxidermied animal, then give a warning to people. Like, don't just put it up on a gallery wall and decide that because it's up on a gallery wall, it's okay for anybody to see it. You know, despite the damage it causes them psychologically. there are good things about art school too. I don't want to be unfair and make it sound like Emily Carr was a horrible school and a bad place with bad teachers. There were some really good teachers. And there were some really fascinating things that we learned. And some of the work other students were doing was beautiful, was really inspiring and really good. There was one guy in one of my classes. I wish I could remember his name. I'd give a shout out and maybe a link to his art if he still makes art. I don't remember his name, but he made this painting. We had to do a painting. I forget what the exact nature of the assignment was, but during the critique, I just zeroed in on his painting as my favorite thing that anybody in that class had made. And it was a view of Grouse Mountain. And in Vancouver, at night, Grouse Mountain, which is like a ski hill on top of... Grouse Mountain is a mountain. And there's a famous hike that goes up Grouse Mountain. It's called the Grouse Grind. And at the top of the Grouse Grind hike, in the winter, there's a ski hill. And at nighttime in the winter, actually at nighttime I think year-round. I haven't lived in Vancouver for a while, but from what I remember, it's lit up year-round. If you're new to Vancouver and you see Grouse Mountain in the sky at night, it looks like a constellation of stars. So this guy in my class, I want to say his name was Simon. He could have been named Simon. But there was another guy named Simon, so I could be wrong. Those of you who think I've got like a superhuman memory because of other stuff I've talked about in my videos, now you know the truth. I don't. I remember a lot of things, but not everything. So as I was saying, this guy, he had made a painting of Grouse Mountain, and in the foreground of the painting, there was this candle, and it was beautifully rendered. It was such a realistic, well-painted candle. And it looked like it was sitting on a desk with like canvases and paints and painting instruments. And in the background, yeah, there was the window and you could see Grouse Mountain and the city lights of Vancouver, like the skyline. And this particular critique in the class, we were all supposed to kind of give our interpretations, like whoever wanted to talk gave an interpretation of what the other student, what the other artist meant to say with their work. And I commented on his that it just made me think of alchemy, because the way he had painted this desk, it had paint colors in glass bottles and vials that just looked alchemical. Like there was some kind of an old-fashioned, old-world charm to it. And there was no lamplight inside his place. There was just this one candle. And in the background, there's all these city lights, but they're so tiny and so far in the distance that even though up close they might have been gigantic, they were insignificant. And so what I saw in that piece was that no matter how huge the city lights might be, they don't matter to an artist as much as one candle that lights your workspace and allows you to paint. And it was pretty cool because I didn't know that guy very well. Like we had some classes together, but we didn't really know each other. But he just like nodded and smiled, and he said that was exactly what he was going for. He even wanted it to look alchemical. Like the word alchemy was in his mind as he was painting it. And that, yeah, that was the exact, point of his piece. So there's definitely, merit to expressing something or telling a story with your art. It's not like I only like abstract art. Even though, like I had said in my last video, my favorite movement is Les Automatistes out of Montreal and abstract expressionism. I would love to see a Jackson Pollock painting up close. I think it's crazy cool how he does those splatters. There's an artist, I think his name is Alex Janvier. I'm gonna Google this even as I'm talking to you. Too bad I don't know. Oh, duh. Okay, here's my duh moment of the day. I was gonna say, where's my phone? And then that's what I'm recording this with, so I'm gonna have to Google it on my laptop. Yes, I was right. There's a First Nations artist in Canada called Alex Janvier. I'm gonna try to aim my camera to show you some of the search results. That's his work. Ignore my dirty floor over there. For a second there, you saw all the cat hair and random debris on my floor. I swear, my apartment is not disgusting. It's that I got my cats this scratching board that's made out of cardboard. And they don't just scratch and keep their scratching contained in the cardboard scratching board. What they do is they dig up chunks of that cardboard and they play with it like toys. So they carry these little like ripped up cardboard chunks all around my apartment. And for a while there, I was trying to keep it like vacuumed twice a day to get rid of all this cardboard crap. But since the quarantine started and I can't have house guests anyway, I've kind of let it slide because really the cats have fun with their cardboard mess on the floor, so why would I deprive them of that joy if I'm the only one seeing it? And then I panned the camera up and now you all saw it, so whatever, don't judge me. Don't judge my cats. But what I was saying was, yeah, Alex Janvier, when this quarantine is over, I hope it's over, like, soon. And my love and my prayers for everyone who's in the hospital with COVID-19 and everyone who's lost a loved one and everyone who's battling with it, all the doctors, like, my heart goes out to you. And I also hope, like, for the sake of all the artists, galleries are closed at this point in time, and people who have physical shops where they sell their work, they can't sell their work because they can't have their shop open, so it sucks. But Alex Janvier, he was Canada's first, for sure. He may even be the first in all of North America, states included. The first Native artist to do abstract expressionism. There's a really beautiful tradition of art on the BC coast, like Coast Salish style art, which is really graphic, black, white, and red, almost abstracted portrayals of animals and nature that I just love. I would say that's my favorite of all the First Nations art styles. It's the Coast Salish stuff. But Alex Janvier, he blazed a trail in that his work is really abstract expressionist. It's not depicting anything specific. And it's not in any stereotypical First Nations style. It's really a style all his own. And I didn't know anything about him when I first started seeing his work in various art history textbooks. I just thought, like, it's the most beautiful abstract art I've ever seen. And I recently Googled him when I started to think of who are my all-time favorite artists. Like, if I could go see any of my favorite artists' work, who would it be? It would be him. I could say that, yeah. Alex Janvier is my favorite artist. And I found out recently he has an art gallery where he personally lives. It's like his studio space / gallery, his own personal gallery in northern Alberta. So when I left the Nityananda cult and moved back to Canada, I kind of put it on my to-do list, my I'm back in my home country bucket list, that I would love to make a road trip up north to Alex Janvier's gallery. And even though I'm not a wealthy person, like I make a very modest living on Etsy, selling my jewelry, like I can pay my rent and I can pay my internet bill thanks to my patrons on Patreon. Shout out to my patrons. I'm having a live Zoom party with all my patrons tomorrow. I was going to say Sunday, and it's already Saturday. With this whole lockdown quarantine, I don't even know what day it is anymore. So luckily I do. I know what day it is. I know today is Saturday. Luckily for everyone joining that Zoom meeting, because it would really suck if I invited them all and they made the time to meet me on Zoom and then I didn't show up because my lazy ass doesn't know what day of the week it is. But anyhow, thanks to my patrons on Patreon, I'm able to keep making videos like this because I pay my internet bill with my Patreon earnings. Anyhow, where I was going with that, I was going to say, like, if I was really rich, I would buy one of his original paintings. Because I really feel that the energy and the expression of the artist is alive in their work. And if you buy a print or if you buy a print or see somebody's work in an art book, you will get a feeling of who they are and what they're expressing with it. But when you hold an original, it's like you can feel the pulse of that artist. There's something just so vibrant in it. I've been blessed to be able to go to a lot of different art museums in my life. Maybe my all-time favorite art museum I've ever been to is the Tate Modern in England. And my other favorite artists, like Mark Rothko and Wassily Kandinsky, like seeing their work in person, live and in person, their original art, you can just feel the energy that they put into their paintings. Every brush stroke has this kind of dynamic movement in it. And it's so inspiring, standing in front of work made by people who were some of the very first ever to break the conformity that says your art has to be a picture of something, has to look like something. It's kind of like I owe a debt of gratitude to those guys for the fact that an abstract painting class even is a thing at Emily Carr. Even though my experience of that art class wasn't so good, I'm glad it exists. But yeah, I would love to go to the Alex Janvier gallery and see his work in person, because there's something just mystical and magical about the way his paintings look. And yeah, like I was saying, even though I'm not like a rich person who could buy one of his original paintings, I want to go there in person and buy a print. Instead of ordering one online from Amazon or from like some online store, it would be really cool to be able to buy it from his gallery directly and directly support, in whatever small way I can, his art. I think he was awarded the Order of Canada, and he also has a piece, like a really large-scale, beautiful medicine wheel that he painted, is hanging somewhere in Ottawa. Damn, guys, these videos, I'm not used to talking and drawing at the same time, so I just kind of like leaned back and looked at my full piece here, and it's a little bit messier. It's not my usual style. It doesn't look as clean as the stuff I draw when the camera's not rolling and when I'm not blathering away. And I'm also starting to think, like, I should plan these videos a little more, and I mean, there's no fun and spontaneity in that if it's pre-planned. But like, if I knew at the beginning of this that I was going to bring up Alex Janvier, I would have Googled him first and made sure I knew, like, where is this gallery of his, in case some of you might want to go there too, and what is the name of his most famous piece? You know, what is the work that he has hanging, and where is it? Is it the National Gallery? Is it the Canadian Parliament building? I don't know. And I'm not going to stop drawing to Google it again, because I think that would be an unfair distraction in the middle of this work. But you can Google it if you're interested. I'll put his name in the video description below, so if you are interested, you can Google him. Learn something about a Canadian First Nations artist and the beautiful work he does. And I think, yeah, I've basically said as much as I wanted to say about art school and, you know, the fact that I'm disturbed by the fact that a lot of artists now consider it's only art if it's disturbing or if it can communicate something jarring and off-putting to the viewer. My favorite artists are still the artists who make work that I want to look at. I mean, just imagine how ridiculous this is. Imagine telling a child, like, okay, say you're talking to a little kid, like your kid, or a kid if you don't have a kid. Say like a 5-year-old asks you, like, what's an artist? What would you tell that 5-year-old? Would you say an artist is somebody who creates visual content to disturb viewers? Like, no, you'd say like an artist is somebody who paints pictures or draws. Or like if a little kid makes a picture of a beautiful flower and says, look, I want to be an artist, are you going to say like, maybe splatter some blood on that flower, honey, because it's not art unless it's disturbing? Like, no, you'll encourage them to make beautiful things. I'm also really interested in art therapy. I had a friend in Vancouver. She started out as one of my tarot clients at the tarot room. And she was such a cool lady. She had her own gallery, the Yvonne Hertach Gallery. And she made beautiful abstract art. And she also had an art therapy practice. Like, she would have clients. Her live workspace was like my fantasy place to live. It's still my goal. Like, one day when I've made it as far as my personal financial career goals, I want a place like what she had, the Yvonne Hertach Gallery. It was this amazing little, like, three story, would that be the word? Triple decker. She had this really cool sort of a loft condo on Granville Island in Vancouver. And the ground level of her little live workspace was a gallery where she put her work, just gorgeous artwork. And then the second level of the loft, she had clients who she would do art therapy with. And so it was like a studio. Huge canvases and paints and brushes, and she would put on healing music and just help people overcome trauma through artistic expression. And I can totally see that that's where some disturbing subject matter might come out if people are healing trauma by creating a visual thing. But yeah, the basement level, downstairs level, ground level was an amazing gallery of her art. And then the second level was her art therapy practice. And then the top level was her private residence. She lived there. And it was so cool. But yeah, art therapy is something else that interests me. Somebody else commented on my last video asking if I would ever want to go back to art school and maybe become an art teacher. And I've thought about that, but it's it's not as easy to just become an art teacher as you might think. Like, I come from an education family. My granddad was the director of curriculum for the school board here in my hometown. And my mom was a professional teacher until she retired, and my auntie was a professional teacher until she retired. And I think I had told them once when I was a kid that I want to be an art teacher when I grow up. And I was very quickly schooled in the fact that just because you get your teaching degree and you're a major in art, that doesn't mean that there's going to be a teaching position available in art. Like, you might have to take a job as a math teacher, which, I mean, that's when I was lost. I was like, wait, what? Like, I can't just say I'm an artist and a teacher, so let me teach art. Like, I might have to teach math. And that's just how education these days works. Like, you're not guaranteed that you'll be teaching the subject matter that interests you. If I knew that by becoming a teacher, I'd automatically get to teach art and English, creative writing, like the stuff that I enjoy, I'd be all in. But I don't want to teach the social studies curriculum that they give you that tells kind of a biased, whitewashed history of who we are. Like, I don't want to lie to a bunch of kids knowingly for a paycheck. So that's why I haven't really gone back to school to become a teacher. Maybe one day I'll go back to school, but not to become a teacher, I don't think. You never know. We always change our minds as life goes on about what we want to do and what we will do. So maybe one day I'll decide I do want to go back and become a teacher. And at that point I'll say, hey, remember that drawing video I did a long time ago? Well, don't listen to me because I think being a teacher is great. Who knows? But as of now, I don't want to. Doesn't that thing I just drew look like an ice cream cone with a cherry on top? Accidentally. Sometimes you see things in art. And I see Ganesha's trunk here, like there's a big elephant ear in a trunk. That was unintentional. There's a pyramid. There's like a seashell, like a fossilized seashell. Here's an assembly line with some toy tugboats falling off. That's not actually what all those things are. This was all just random abstract doodling, but people always wind up seeing things in art. Here's a group of people lining up to look at the moon, and the moon has a really cool, like, feathered headdress. Anyhow, what do you see in this piece? What I would really love is if you, like, who like, you watching this or listening to this right now, if you would get a pen and paper, and as I'm drawing and babbling, like, if I saw comments from people saying, like, you know what, it looked like so much fun how you were drawing there that I decided to draw while watching, that would be so cool. Because I get so much enjoyment out of drawing that I would love it if other people also got to enjoy this. And I might do some more tutorial videos. A couple years ago I did a video tutorial for abstract drawing. And I did get some nice comments under that from people who said they were going to try it out too. But anyway, I think I'm about done with this piece. I'll put a picture of it on Facebook for anyone who wants it, who wants a copy. Oh, and I'm also going to do a new coloring book. I had some really shit reviews on my last coloring books on Amazon. I self-published them using what's now Kindle publishing, but it used to be CreateSpace self-publishing. And so I uploaded all of my drawings, like super high resolution scans, and I ordered a proof copy for myself to make sure it was okay, and it was pretty good. And then, like, fast forward a few years, I got curious and I checked to see, like, hey, like, has anybody left a review on my coloring books? And oh my God, like, One person gave it a 1-star review and said I'd give this book 0 stars if I could. The paper quality is crap and the images are really blurry. So I kind of lost faith in self-publishing my coloring books using CreateSpace, because the last thing that I want is for somebody to buy something from me and then be disappointed that the quality is poor. So if any of you bought that coloring book, it was called Color Your Way to Creative Consciousness. If any of you bought that book and then got like wickedly disappointed, I'm very sorry. I didn't know that the quality would be so low. My proof copy that they sent me was pretty good. Like, I gave it to all of my aunties and some of my friends, and they had fun coloring it. They had no issues with the paper, so I just assumed it was good all these years. My bad. When the quarantine is over, I'm going to make a coloring book, like a physical copy by myself, using all of these pictures I've drawn in the last year. Here's just my show and tell, like some random samples. I showed these in my last video too, but I'm pretty proud of these, so I'll show them again. But I'm going to print some physical copies of these at my local print shop, and I'm going to print them on like heavy-duty cardstock, one side, like single-sided prints, and leave them loose in a folio. Folio, which is a word I learned in art school. It's basically a book that's not bound, so a book of individual loose sheets. When the quarantine's over, I'm going to go have these pictures printed on high-quality, thick paper that you can paint on if you want, or color with markers without worrying that the color is going to bleed through to the other side. And I'll sell those in my Etsy shop. But in the meantime, I'm going to scan them myself and put them up for sale in my Etsy shop as a download, so people can pay whatever, like $10 for 20 images. And then you've got them, you can print them yourself. You can print them on high quality paper yourself even, and paint into them or color them with markers. I've put some of the images up on Facebook, so they're totally free for those who like freebies. You can go download a couple of my drawings from my Facebook page. It's publicly viewable, so you don't need to be my Facebook friend. You can just go look at my Facebook page and download what you like. But yeah, that's my plan for my art for the near future, is to add to my Art of Gems Etsy shop. And instead of just having jewelry I make, like the bracelets, I specially wore a Larimar and iolite and lapis lazuli bracelet. I put on some jewels for this video. And then probably you only saw my fingers as I drew, so the jewelry was completely redundant. But yeah, I'm gonna add a section of art to my Etsy shop, and hopefully that'll inspire some more people to get creative. And yeah, I think in my next video like this, I'm going to talk about creative consciousness and left and right brain balance, and why I think doodling and coloring is so valuable, and why I started self-publishing coloring books in the first place, because I think it's still, a good discussion to have, especially in these quarantine times when we're looking for activities we can do for cheap at home. Drawing is definitely one of them. But anyway, yeah, that's about everything I wanted to say, and I kept it nice and tight at 59 minutes, so you're welcome for not over talking people who criticize me for having videos that are too long. Seriously though, thank you for anybody who's listened this long. I appreciate your attention span. And yeah, if there's any random topic you want to hear me talk about while I draw, this is basically like my podcast, Let me know in the comments below. Any questions, any suggested topics, anything you'd like to hear in a video. I will be more than happy to talk about it and make another picture. So yeah, with that said, I'm going to put this up on Facebook as a free download for anyone who likes it. And we'll see you in the next video. Much love, be healthy, stay home for now. Bye.